Coming to you from his downtown Denver studio, here's the Backstage Jazz Radio Show with your host, Steve Roby.
This is Backstage Jazz, and I'm Steve Roby. We're doing another remote episode, and my guest today is Denver guitarist, composer, and teacher J.J. Murphy. We'll discuss his music and upcoming performance at Dazzle on Saturday, December 16th. Welcome to Backstage Jazz, J.J.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Glad you can make it. Let's start with your music background. What inspired you to become a guitarist, and who were some of your early influences?
Sure. Well, I guess we'll have to start with my dad. Got to be honest, he's not much of a guitar player, and he'll admit that himself, but he did play a bit. And, you know, there's always guitar at the house, and I could hear him playing every once in a while, so that got me going.
Nice.
And then he would play a lot of records at the house, everything from Santana, Steely Dan, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Classic
the
rock.
Beatles, classic rock for sure.
Yeah.
And then kind of as I got into school, and I played trumpet, and then they switched me to trombone and baritone the whole bit. So I got into jazz band, and then kind of set me down the jazz path. But guitar was always there, and by the time I was in college, really, or in high school, it was really my prominent instrument. It was where I kind of saw everything and translated it to horns when I needed to.
Okay.
For sure. But yeah, so I'd really say that my dad's music taste is really what got me into got me into playing music in the first place.
Yeah. Where are you originally from?
So I'm from Central New York, Hamilton, New York. It's about an hour outside Syracuse.
Okay.
So we used to, there's a relatively big blues scene there for such a remote area, if you will. So I was kind of got initiated into that somewhat when I was young.
Yeah.
And that was a super supportive scene, and they were always really good to me and my dad. I can think of the Bernie Clark and the Rhythm Sharks was a band I used to sit in with, and they were incredible. So
okay. You have a lot of different styles that you play on the bio. It's funk, jazz, rock, and like that. Command a lot of different genres in your playing, right?
Sure. I guess I just play what I like. You know, it's the easiest way to put it. I think for me, the jazz sensibility and the jazz vocabulary, I think, opened up a door, so to speak, for, it's almost a process now more than it is a genre. So I'll really take that process, so to speak, and apply it to whatever music it is I'm playing, whether it be a solo piece, a full band piece. And then in terms of the genre, to me it all blends together, right? So it's like when's funk stop and when hip hop starts, it kind of blurs the lines. So I just take that jazz process and apply it to whatever stylistic groove or harmony I want to work with, or what I'm into in that moment. My tastes are always changing, but you know how it goes.
Well, you moved here from Nashville 7 years ago. How would you say the music scenes differ from Nashville to Denver?
Sure, or I was in Nashville for 7 years. Yeah, I moved here, I moved to Colorado 2019, and then Denver about a year ago. Yeah, I mean, they're totally different scenes. You know, when I moved to Nashville, I was a lot younger. I was 22 when I moved to Nashville, so I think I had a different take on a lot of things, but
sure.
I think here it seems like the music's a little bit more self-made. A buddy of mine and the drummer, I'm sure you know Braxton Kahn, he put it really well. He said Denver doesn't have the industry of some other towns, say like, you know, Nashville or LA, but it's got a creativity and a support for the arts that honestly, like, I don't know what other cities to compare it to. It just seems like there's taste for everything here.
And it feels like it's growing too.
Absolutely, no, for sure.
The short time I've been here, I've noticed that too. And like you say, very supportive, especially at Dazzle. And they're just really into locals and to some of the touring artists that come through.
Yeah, definitely, very supportive.
It's a great opportunity. Well, you sent over some music for us to share with our listeners. The first track is called San Giuseppe, if I hope I got that right.
I hope I say it right, too.
Well, what can you tell us about this first track?
Sure. So originally I wrote that for a podcast I was part of a few years ago when I was sharing a story about, to make sure I'm saying this right, my great-great-uncle who was involved in the mafia, for lack of a better way of putting it. And well, he ended up getting murdered, so we did a little story about covering that. And I wrote a piece that sounds very similar to a particular mafia theme we all know and love, starring Al Pacino. And So it's kind of an homage to all of that. And then after a couple years later, after the podcast and all that, I was doing a trio record with Braxton Kahn and Kirwan Brown. So I kind of rewrote the song, took the skeleton of it, because the original recording of it only had 3 chords. And then I kind of expanded on that, knowing that Braxton and Kirwan were going to be the band and see what we come up with. So really now the song you'll hear it almost sounds like a cover of a song I wrote in a weird way. But not too many people heard the original, I'm sure.
Interesting background. Just curious, what was the podcast?
Sure, yeah, it was called Mary and the Pharaoh Podcast.
Okay.
I'm sure there's still some episodes out there you can
Somebody
find.
can look for it and find it.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, let's play San Giuseppe now here on Backstage Jazz. This is Backstage Jazz. I'm Steve Roby, and my guest today is Denver guitarist J.J. Murphy. J.J., you play a variety of different styles, and this next song Coco Diaz, I hope we got that one
Diaz,
right.
yep.
Diaz.
Yep.
Has a blues feel to it. What's the backstory with this one?
So I wrote that song, a few years ago anyway. It was over the quarantine. And to me, it just kind of was one of those songs that played itself. I just sat down and played it. And it's really simple. There's not much to it. To me, it sounds like it's kind of influenced by Skip James, a guitarist from the mid 20th century. The name, though, comes from a comedian I'm a fan of, Joey Coco Diaz, who used to be in Boulder for a little while. So I feel like he has a Colorado connection.
Okay.
To me, just the almost got like a heavy somberness to it, but it's still marching forward. To me, that just sounds like what's going on in that guy's brain.
Yeah, I was listening to it this morning. It was something I unexpectedly thought, wow, this is pretty cool.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, let's give it a play now. This is Coco Diaz on Backstage Jazz. JJ, let's discuss your upcoming show with Nate Miller, Kirwan Brown, and Braxton Kahn at Dazzle on December 16th. Can you tell me about the quartet and what can fans look forward to at the show?
Sure, yeah. So those are guys I've all played with, a fair bit at this point. Like I said, I'm still new to this area, and so I'm fortunate to be playing with those guys. Yeah, I'm going to play some of my tunes, some older songs that maybe people will recognize but not sure where they heard it from. That's sort of like I was saying earlier, I take songs from all different sorts of genres. So we'll be covering some Radiohead, Hank Williams.
There's a transition.
You know, right. So even right there, it's like, what? Miles Davis. So it's kind of all over the place. But we take that same jazz process and apply it to whatever it is we're playing. And we kind of filter it through the communication that the four of us have together on stage, where it's not a whole lot is said before the gig. You know, before.
So there's no planned set list?
Yeah, well, I'll send them a list of tunes that I'll be drawing from.
Sure. Yeah.
And but they're just such incredible musicians that I can kind of just hand them something and see what they do with it, and then that inspires me to play it differently, and it just turns into a conversation that really is the first time it's being had. And I think the audience can feel that. I know last time we played there, we had Todd Smalley on bass, and that was the first time the four of us had ever played together in any. But it was so fun. It's just it's exhilarating, you know, and I think the audience can feel that for sure.
Well,
respond to that.
Tell me about the other players on stage with you.
Sure.
What are their backgrounds?
So Nate Miller, he plays both. So he's going to be doing tenor sax and trumpet with us, and he can switch back and forth, which is pretty cool. I don't know a whole lot of horn players that do that on the fly like that. But he's new to town as well. I think he's only like 20 years old, maybe 21 years old.
Wow.
But he's played with everyone. But then Kirwan Brown, he's just a veteran. Like everything he plays to me sounds perfect. It's like I couldn't think of a better note to play in that moment. And it's just like, oh my gosh, every time he plays something to me, it's like a revelation. It's like, oh, that's what I should be doing. And then with Braxton, his sense of time and his ears are just, I mean, world class. You know, it's everything anyone's playing. He hears it and he's responding to it. And with him, it's like any give and take, push and pull, I should say, with the time. If someone's on top and things are getting exciting or someone's laying back, he knows how to respond to that without faltering any sense of the tempo. So it's just something that I'm really fortunate to play with these guys and get to know them so quickly. And
that's wonderful. It sounds like a great show.
For sure. You know, it's been such a supportive scene here, and the way Denver connects with, you know, the national scene it's just a really creative thing to be, a really creative place to be a part of right now. And like I said, I'm really fortunate to be here, and I'm really fortunate to know these people. So
great. Well, we're glad to have you here, contributing to the music scene. Where can our listeners go online to find out more about your music and guitar lessons? You also teach, right?
Yeah, for sure. I teach up in Boulder 3 days a week, and then I run a band program up there. Mostly like rock and roll, pop music, but these kids they're not all, you know, the age range I teach from is as young as, I'm trying to think of my youngest student right now. It's probably 9. And then my oldest student is 79, I think. So I teach all different ages, which is, I love, because, you know, not too long ago, I was a preschool teacher when I was in my 20s. That was kind of like my day gig for a while.
Yeah, of course.
But then I also run a band program, and the band is like rock and pop music. So to teach these incredibly gifted students how to play in a band setting, like in a more commercial setting, not so much like, you know, everyone's got their sheet music out, everyone's got playing their parts on their horns and their clarinets and stuff. It's like they're listening to each other, they're listening to the songs, they're learning how to play them by ear, they're learning how to operate as a band as opposed to just following a band director's, you know what I mean?
That must be so rewarding for you.
Oh, too. Absolutely. I love, you know, I feel very fortunate. Colorado's been really good to me. So, but yeah, I teach at the Lesson Studio up in Boulder, and then I teach privately, virtually, you know, all the time. So if anyone's interested, finding me, they can find just JJ Murphy Music across the board. So,
.com, right?
Yep, jjmurphymusic.com, JJ Murphy Music on Instagram, YouTube,
great.
Facebook.
I'll put some links in the show description too, so people can find you and hopefully hook up and your show schedule's on there too.
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
That's
I'm always posting that. So
that's good. Okay. Well, let me remind our listeners, JJ Murphy, along with Nate Miller, Kirwan Brown, Braxton Kahn, will appear at Dazzle on Saturday, December 16th. Showtime is 9 p.m. with doors opening at 8:30. For tickets and more info, visit dazzledenver.com. Thank you for your time today, JJ.
Well, thank you so much for
having me. Have a great show at Dazzle.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
If you're enjoying the Backstage Jazz Show, we'd love for you to like, subscribe, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And now, back to the show.
The Backstage Jazz Show was recorded at Little Raven Studios in downtown Denver, and our producer was Craig Stevens. You can find Backstage Jazz wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure to stop by our website, backstage-jazz.com, where all past and current episodes have been archived. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can email us at backstagejazz@fastmail.com. This is Steve Roby. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Backstage Jazz.
You've been listening to the Backstage Jazz Show. Join us next time for more great jazz and interviews with your favorite musicians.